So today we have a couple of awesome professionals here with us.
Listen up.
Lynn Jacobs is a professional engineer and a professional traffic operations engineer. He holds a Master's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Brigham Young University. Lynn has over a decade of experience in traffic operations, simulation, and analysis at Fair and Piers, and is one of the premier traffic operations modelers in the West. Recently, Lynn was the lead traffic engineer for the Moab Bypass Conceptual Study, which attempted to estimate the costs and potential benefits of a new highway that would bypass Moab's downtown. Lynn is a company-wide expert in traffic operations analysis. In this role, he's responsible for providing analysis training for new staff at Fair and Piers, and has applied his knowledge and skills to solving transportation problems throughout the country, including projects in California, Colorado, Washington State, Maryland, and Florida. Lynn is passionate about transportation and mobility, and he brings the passion to every project he works on. With him, we have Saishi Yamagata. He is a professional engineer and is a transportation engineer in the Salt Lake City office of Fair and Piers. And he holds a Master's of Science degree in Civil Engineering with an emphasis on transportation from Brigham Young University. Having joined the office in 2014, Saishi has developed experience in traffic operations analyses through various projects such as evaluating alternative intersection options through the I-15 interchange at 9000 South and Sandy, evaluating transit signal priority timing plans for the transit and traffic networks for the Provo-Orem bus rapid transit, and evaluating operations and travel times for the newly proposed Purple Line Metro in Maryland. Saishi is passionate about producing high-quality analyses and brings his excitement to various projects. So please help me in welcoming him.
Thank you so much. We'll get our slides up here. Awesome. Well, first I have to know you guys a little bit better. So how many of you think that when you graduate you're going to work in the transportation industry? Oh, I'm seeing about maybe 10% of you. Does that seem about right? Shameless plug for Dr. Schultz, wherever he went. There he is. You're wrong. You're all wrong. I would bet that 90% of you, if not every single one of you, will be involved in the transportation industry after you graduate at some point in your career. Whether you're doing structures, whether you're doing geotech, whether you're doing water, you're going to be involved in helping us build highways, bridges, infrastructure to move people around. That's where the bulk of jobs in civil engineering are, and where a lot of you will, at least at some point in your career, probably get involved. Does that sound right, Dr. Schultz? Would you argue with that?
I would argue with it.
Awesome. I was actually one of Dr. Schultz's first graduate students back in a while ago, a little while ago, a couple of years ago. And honestly, we need traffic engineers. We need people that do this, and so if you have any interest in getting into transportation and traffic, talk to Dr. Schultz. I'm sure he'd be happy to get you started on that path. So with that, we wanted to talk today a little bit about transportation solutions for recreational hotspots around the state. So we're hoping that by the end of our presentation, you guys all have a better understanding of what these recreational hotspots are around our state, what that means for our state in terms of economic dollars, money that comes into the state, money that comes in to help support our economy, what the impacts that's having on our transportation network are, and what we are doing about it. So with that, I'm going to kind of jump right in. Got a little video for you, and actually I'm going to hop out of our presentation and show it. I don't know if any of you have seen this video before. Hopefully our audio's set up here.
First, Zion, you're walking.
Too loud.
The ground drops. The ground becomes warm. Next, Christ. You're riding a mule. You're riding a mule under giant orange strip castles. You are not dreaming. You will not forget this. On to Capitol Reef. Take the scenic route. The really scenic route. Take a path you've never taken and see the stars for the first time. Now for Canyonlands. You're riding a bike. You're riding a bike on Mars. Now you're riding the rapids. Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Classic. Arches, 5:32 a.m. Some things are worth racing the sunrise for. The horizon lightens. You round the corner. Whoa. This is Life Elevated. The Mighty 5 iconic parks, one epic experience. Plan your trip at visitutah.com.
Awesome. How many of you have seen that video before? Curious. It's been around for a couple of years. This is a program that the state did probably starting 2 or 3 years ago, to really encourage people to come and visit our national park system here in the state. This is one of the reasons I live here in Utah. I love to hike, camp, backpack. This is why I'm here, right? And it's probably why a lot of you would stay here. And a lot of people live in our state just for these very experiences, or at least come to visit. Well, so for a couple of years ago, the state realized that we have this huge natural resource that we wanted to help encourage people to come here to help us with our economic vitality of the state. Well, let me tell you, it's been really effective. Here's a couple of charts that kind of help you understand that. You can see back in about 2000, we had 5.3 million visitors to our national park system in the state, and we had about 3.3 million skiers. Over the years, that has climbed dramatically, and you can see that there's been a big uptick between about 2014 through 2016, and now in 2016, a couple of years ago, we were at 10 million visitors to our national park system here in the state. That's a lot of people. It's doubled. And skiers are also on the rise. We're up to about 4.6 million skiers that come here to visit the state. What that means for us is that we end up with about $1.2 billion worth of tax revenue as a state that goes to either the state or local agencies to deal with growing, to help us build the infrastructure that we're all responsible for creating and making sure works well. It also means back in 2012 we had about $7.6 billion worth of our economy was tied to tourism. Now that number is up to $8.4 billion. That's a lot of money that comes into our state. So here's the thing, this program that the state did has been very, very effective. And as a matter of fact, it's starting to become a little too effective. The national parks are over full. They're overloaded. And the communities adjacent to them are starting to experience some pretty significant congestion as a result. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Seishi, who can talk a little bit about what the state decided to do about that.
Hey guys. Thanks, Lynn. So Lynn introduced to you how the campaigns are effective and how recreation and tourism is affecting our transportation networks here, having some big impact. So now I want to transition into, so what is the state doing about that? All those increased tourists and tax revenue, it's really great for the state, but the state also recognizes the need to accommodate for those increased visitors to our state. So in 2017, Senate Bill 277 was passed, allowing $100 million to be used for transportation improvements in areas with recreation experiencing significant congestion. To further break that down, in May 2018, it was decided that these 4 areas require the most attention. First, the Bear Lake area with 8.3 million allocated, Moab area with 10 million, 15 million for the Zion area, and then 66 million for Little Cottonwood Canyon, which leads up to the ski resorts. And when we talk about these recreational areas, there's difficulty in applying traditional engineering perspective. There's the perception versus reality aspect of this. So we have this chart up here which shows hourly traffic volumes on US 89 in the Bear Lake area. And on the x-axis you see, and this is throughout 2014. And on the x-axis you see the dates, the days of the year. And on the y-axis you see the hourly traffic volumes on US 89. And so for those of you not familiar with traffic engineering, in the traffic operations world, we try to put a qualitative measure to roadways and intersections with something called a level of service. And what it pretty much does is it assigns a letter grade based on experience delay from A through F. A being pretty much, not much congestion, pretty much free flow, and then level of service F being bumper to bumper, a lot of congestion. And in non-urban areas, level of service C is usually acceptable. And then in urban areas, level of service D is usually acceptable. Level of service E and F are usually considered not acceptable. And if you see on this chart, there's only a few, handful of days that actually, experience level of service D or even the upper level of level of service C. So it's really not that bad, right? But those handful of days that you see congestion on this road, the local neighborhoods and the visiting tourists, they have this perception of there's a lot of congestion here. So the state recognizes the need to accommodate for that. And diving into these specific, the 4 areas that were allocated some funds. So Bear Lake area, I'm just curious, how many of you have been to Bear Lake or this area? Okay, maybe a third, a half. You guys need to get out more. I can say this because I've been in your shoes. I speak from experience. Just studying's good, but getting out to see our beautiful land is good. So the Bear Lake area, and so how many of you that has been there has experienced congestion on this US 89? Was it pretty bad when you were there? Wayfinding might be an issue, right? So, based on local engagement amongst local leaders, some Department of Transportation staff, a prioritized evaluation criteria was set to determine some projects that resonates with the needs of this area. So I don't know if you can see clearly, but so 4 priority projects within the area were determined, and one includes improving access to the marina. The second one, intersection upgrades at the intersection of US 89 and SR 30. And then 3 and 4, some center turn lanes at the Garden City area and Buttercup Lane. So these 4 projects were considered the priority projects for this Bear Lake area to accommodate for those tourists and also for the local neighborhoods. And for this project, other needs were considered, such as active transportation, so improving the trails along the lake. That was considered, but these 4 projects were selected due to the competitive nature of funding within this recreational hotspot program. And with that, I'm going to turn the time back over to Lynn to talk about Moab.
Thanks, Seichi. And you're dead on right. I mean, the first time I went to Bear Lake, I was totally lost. I had no idea where to go. I didn't know where the beach was. I didn't know how to get there. And so certainly some of the recommendations that came out of our study were to improve on that. That'll probably be done as separate projects that the city will do themselves. It doesn't take a lot of money or funding to do that kind of work, and so that's probably how that's going to end up happening. But they certainly recognize that that's a need up there as well. Moab, similar, right? We've got a big recreational area down here. We've got Canyonlands and we've got Arches National Park right there. How many of you have been stuck in traffic in Moab? All right, I need a volunteer. Who will come and describe to us what that was like? I need a volunteer. If not, I'm going to send one of the ASC officers to come up. So if you want to make it awkward for them, go volunteer, but go ahead, come on up. Talk to us about it. You're the winner.
It was bad. There was like, if you want to be technical.
When were you there?
When was I there? I was there over our spring holiday, so March. Our big spring break. And
not break.
No, it's not break. It's just a day off. Yes. And it was busy. It was very busy. And that was the March when it was no major like weekend or anything like that. So.
Awesome. How long were you stuck?
How long was I stuck?
Just like if you were coming back to town.
We probably stuck for like an hour or two.
It's pretty bad, isn't it? An hour or two sitting waiting. The real problem with Moab is that happens, but it only happens about 5 or 6 times a year. It's not a regular, like every day, they don't experience that kind of congestion. But boy, when it happens, it gets really bad, really fast. And we actually, and this is a little bit of a somber note, there's been a fatality associated with that traffic congestion, which is horrible. That's the kind of thing that we want to try to fix. But it really is hard to do so because usually when we're doing traffic engineering, we're looking for commuter-related congestion, things that are typical, things that are happening a lot of times, and we try to quantify the benefits of doing these things in those terms. And it's really hard to try to do that for a facility that's only congested for a certain part of the year. Well, for Moab, 2 things happen. First thing, Moab Main Street has a lot of parking and a lot of pedestrians. There's about 500 people that walk across Moab Main Street in any peak hour during any of these peak time periods. And that is a lot of pedestrians for an area like Moab. It's a rural community. You get that kind of pedestrian load, it's a little abnormal. The other interesting fact about Moab, and I've been studying Moab for years, it is the only bridge over the Colorado River for hundreds of miles in any direction. So it's the only way for people to get over the Colorado River in that entire area. What that means is that it has become a very important facility for our freight industry. And they actually send a lot of trucks from down in Arizona and New Mexico, maybe even all the way from Mexico, come through here, go over the Colorado River to get up to I-70, to either come over and get to Salt Lake City versus via US 6 or go to Denver on I-70. So there's just a ton of trucks. There's a ton of trucks. As a matter of fact, there's about 35% of the traffic that's in Moab is truck traffic. And that's a lot. Now think about that. So we have a situation where we have a lot of pedestrians walking around, and we have a lot of trucks. And that's not a great combination. We don't like that. The truckers don't like it. They experience a lot of delay in downtown Moab. When they get stuck in that hour delay, it costs them a lot of money to have to deal with that. The citizens of Moab don't like it. When it gets really bad, people all of a sudden will start cutting off and driving through residential neighborhoods instead of sticking to the main street just to try to get around it. And it creates some significant impacts. So one of the first things that was identified is, well, we have a lot of on-street parking in Moab. If we could eliminate that and replace it with other landscaping features, that could help our traffic flow. It would help the trucks to not have to worry about a pedestrian jumping out from a car or having to deal with that kind of situation. So another study, not the one we did, came up with a recommendation to do parking, and they've allocated about $10 million to build some parking in Moab and to get the parking off of Main Street. And so that's kind of why UDOT's been interested in doing this, because they think it'll help them with the congestion. In the meantime, we were hired to look at this bypass idea. And I don't know, what's a bypass? Does anyone know? Everyone know? This is kind of, you build a highway around downtown, right? So we're talking about building a highway around Moab. They were really in vogue in the 70s and 80s. A lot of communities built bypasses. Price did, Greenwood did. The freeway got built kind of on the edge of town. We've all seen cars, right? We've all seen Radiator Springs. That's what happened to Radiator Springs. They built a bypass, they built a big highway, and all of a sudden the community died. And that's been a real concern for the city of Moab. As a matter of fact, they've been talking about a bypass for probably 20 or 30 years. And one of the reasons it has not been built yet is that very concern. They're worried that if they build a highway around downtown, that they're going to end up with a lot of traffic that doesn't come through their community. It doesn't spend money, it doesn't buy gas, it doesn't buy lunch, it doesn't stop and engage. And they don't want that. They want their community to stay vibrant and engaging and interesting. But they also recognize that they got a serious problem with traffic congestion on Sundays of the year, and they also have a serious problem with the amount of trucks that are rolling through downtown. So we did a study, and I'm actually going to kind of pull up our website that we produced for this. One of the cool things we get to work on now is a lot of the deliverables. It used to be that we'd produce a lot of reports. They're really exciting to read. Keep you up all night reading them. A lot of the work we do ends up sitting on a shelf and collecting dust. So it's just the reality of what planning is. we've tried to get better at that. And one of the things we've done is we actually create these story maps, where we kind of tell the story of why this project is needed. UDOT can take this story map, take it to a legislator, say, hey, we need this project, this is why it's needed, this is what we'll get out of it. They can take it and communicate to the public the process we went through to get to where we are. Let me emphasize, this Moab Bypass Highway is not a project right now. This is a concept. This is an idea. There is still a ton of work that has to be done for this to be done. And one of the things the community has been very nervous about is the impacts that this will have to their community. And so understand that there is still years of planning in front of this project before it would ever be built. And so as you guys are graduating, some of you may get the opportunity to actually work on a project like this. So think about that a little bit. Obviously, we provide a big introduction. I don't want to go through every last detail of this, but at the end of it, we came up with kind of this, and this is seems to be the recommendation that's getting the most legs. It's the one that people seem to be getting behind the most, and it's to build a new highway that would come off of US 191 Main Street, south of downtown. And right now, we've got kind of a line on a map. It probably will end up being further south than what we've actually shown right now. The latest thinking from the community is that they actually want to make it even further south and make it so that it goes around. And then it would cut around the side of Moab. You'd build a new bridge over the Colorado River. So your structures guys in here, see what I mean? This is where you guys would get involved in transportation. There's going to be a lot of drainage issues with that. There's a wetlands that we're going to have to touch, so the environmental engineers will get involved in that. Soils are really bad near the river, so our geotech guys will get involved in that. See, it touches all of our disciplines, and that's the exciting part about transportation, is that I get to work with everybody that does civil engineering, right? And then it would take the existing highway from there back up to US 191. They'd have to really improve that highway. They'd have to widen it, put new pavement down. It's pretty beat up right now. But that's the idea. That's kind of the concept, is to build this bypass road that would go around downtown Moab. So what do we do about it? Well, we have to understand what the benefits of this are. So we do traffic modeling, and we look at it, and this is where we really struggle, because for typical traffic engineering, we're looking at like a typical day. We're not looking at UEA weekend. We're not looking at your spring break day, right? We're looking at a typical day, and on a typical day, if we were to build the bypass, we'd get about 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes of travel time benefit for people who are using the bypass over people who are staying on Main Street. That's not a really big number, and so if you think about it, that's not a huge benefit for building this massive new highway, a new bridge over the river. There's some pretty significant impacts associated with this. So we've got to think a little bit deeper than that. So the next thing we look at is a couple of slides that talk about volumes on the different facilities we're talking about. And so the chart here, the x-axis, we have 3 different locations. We've got Main Street, just north of center, so downtown. We've got Fifth West, which is one of the roads that people are really concerned about. That currently it gets used as a bypass right now. When traffic gets bad, people use Fifth West to get around it. And then our bypass road. The blue color is our baseline, so don't build a bypass, right? The red color was one alternative. The orange color is the alternative I just showed you. And so you can see that we would get about a 400 to 500 vehicle per hour reduction on Main Street. That'd be less traffic on Main Street, right? That's a really good thing. We'd actually get a lot of that traffic off of Fifth West too. The volumes on Fifth West drop dramatically. I mean, it doesn't look like much, but it's like a 40 to 50% reduction. This is a neighborhood, right? So getting that much traffic out of the neighborhood has some pretty good benefits for the people that live there. And then obviously we'd be shifting that traffic over to the bypass road. So from that, we start thinking, well, gosh, what does this mean for the freight industry? And we quantify it. We say, a truck, it costs about 60 cents a minute to go. And so if you can save that 4 or 5 minutes of travel time, multiply times the number of trucks in a day, multiply that times the number of days in a year, we come up with a benefit. And that benefit's somewhere with our alternative 1B, which is the one that I described to you, it's around $1 million a year that we would benefit the freight industry by not having to stop and sit in traffic in downtown Moab. And that also equates to about $2.4 million by the time we get to 2030. So with that, this is the real benefit. So I told you we got about 35% trucks in Moab. Well, the bypass is not taking a ton of traffic off of Main Street, but what it is doing is it's taking a ton of truck traffic off of Main Street. You guys all have cell phones, I'm sure. Every one of you does, maybe a couple. We use cell phone data to help us figure this out, right? So we work with a company that helps us figure out how you are traveling by looking at where your cell phone is right now, where it is later in the day, how it moves around. For this study, we looked at cell phone and GPS data, and it helped us figure out how much traffic is stopping in Moab. So a couple of statistics to throw at you. Commercial traffic, our trucks, which again represent about 35% of the overall traffic flow, 80% of them don't stop in Moab. They're just cutting through. They're just driving through. They're not even stopping for gas, right? About 20% stop either for gas or for a delivery that they have to make or for some other reason, and they're there for at least 5 minutes. We know this from cell phones, from GPS data. We actually were able to get down to that level of detail using that data. The other interesting statistic is that non-commercial traffic, so you and me and everyone who's down here being a tourist or driving in this area, is the inverse of that. 80% of the people who are in Moab on Main Street that aren't a truck stop there. And 20% are just cut through, going to Monticello, going down to Duck Creek, going down to New Mexico or Colorado. That's interesting, isn't it? Remember the concern we started with. The community is really worried that if they build this bypass, it's going to take all the traffic off of Main Street and nobody will shop there. We're able to demonstrate that 80% of the people who are tourists who are going to Moab are going there because it's Moab. It's a destination. People want to be here. Building a bypass won't necessarily turn into Radiator Springs in this case, if that makes sense. And what it really does for us is it takes noise away from downtown. Now, I love downtown Moab. Every time I'm down there, I go for a walk. Love walking on it. Every time I do, it is loud. There are trucks rolling down that road. It's concrete pavement for our pavement designers in the room. It's really loud. NCHRP did a study a while ago. A truck creates about 32 cars worth of noise. So if we were able to get the trucks out of downtown Moab, imagine what that will do for the restaurants that front on the main street. Imagine what it will do for the pedestrians who are walking. Imagine what it will do for our tourist experience that is bringing all this money to the state. So that's the real hidden benefit here. It's to make it so that Moab Main Street is a much more attractive and desirable place for people to come and visit and spend their money. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of that goes into what we do. And here's our cost, of course. Big numbers. Big numbers. $90 million if we were to build alternative 1D today. If we wait till 2030, that's more like $140 million. That's a lot of money to spend. And so obviously the state and the city and the county, everybody are grappling with whether to do this or not. And nobody's really sure yet whether this is going to happen. We're at a conceptual stage in the study, but we've given them a little more information about what they could expect to get out of a bypass, how much it would cost them to do it. That makes sense. And then obviously our next step is for them to decide whether as a community they want it. If a community doesn't support a project like this, UDOT's got much better places to put their resources and spend their money. They'll find someone who wants what they need to do. Community is against this, it's going to make it really hard to do. So the first step is for the community to say, we support this and get it on their local plans. Get it adopted as a city that they want to do this. And then obviously there's a whole lot of environmental study and design work and ultimately construction that has to happen before this becomes a reality. So with that, I think I will jump back. Any questions on Moab? I don't know, it was kind of the bulk of what we were talking about here. Okay, with that, I think I'm going to turn the time back over to Seishi to talk a little bit about the other two locations. Oh, I'm talking about this one. Thank you, Seishi. The third project, and I'll just gloss over this. I know that you are all excited to be here, so I'll try to make it as quick as we can. The third project's really interesting for UDOT. They're going to build a transit system from St. George to Zion's National Park. That's pretty cool, isn't it? It's pretty cool that UDOT is going to do that. They normally haven't been in the transit business so much. But they recognize that if they could do this, if they could provide a transit system from St. George to Springville, it'll help. It'll help the congestion on the roadway. It'll help this recreational area by improving our transportation options down there. So this is still very preliminary. I think they're about to start embarking on an environmental study for this, so we still have several years before this will become a reality. But it's in the works, and it was selected to receive a big chunk of money for this project. And then, Seishi, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So, the last one of those four is the Little Cottonwood Canyon. I'm sure a lot of you have been up this area. It's kind of closer. This Little Cottonwood Canyon, this roadway leads up to a lot of ski resorts up there. I think this one goes up to Snowbird and Alta. And this one, we are actually involved in this. And as a company in our Fair and Pierce Salt Lake office, we've actually been working in this area to make transportation improvements for over a decade. So we're invested in this area. And so this, as you saw in that breakdown of funds, this received the biggest chunk. It had $66 million allocated to improve this area. And, ski resorts are kind of unique in the sense that it's a combination of congestion with bad weather. So when there's bad weather, you want to go up and ski. So it attracts more people. So it's kind of a perfect storm, if you will. And so it's unique because we have to, they have to protect the roads and the people. And I want to show you a quick video. And part of that is avalanche control. And I just recently learned this, but Utah is one of the, I don't think it's the only state, but it's one of the, 2 states or something that we use a cannon to do avalanche control. So I found this video. I had another video, but there was some language that wasn't my language. So I found this video. Okay, let me pause. So listen carefully. Around 24 seconds, you'll hear like it hit the mountain.
Can you hear me, Sarge?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, will they let us release traffic, clear it out, or they want to shoot another one immediately?
Did you hear that? That's what I hit.
The plan is to shoot 2, and then we'll release it, so keep it held for now.
Okay. So I just thought it's cool showing. It didn't show it blow up. Video's blowing up, that's cool. So, and then you heard them talking, they closed traffic to do this, of course. And so avalanche control is part of this. So what projects will come out of this is yet to be determined. Some ideas include parking, a transit system, and then also snow sheds to, if you see the bottom right diagram, that shows like a covered snow shed. And then you see that biker there. So it's a pretty heavy attraction for summer days too, for active transportation bikers, bicyclists up there. So what projects are to come out of this are yet to be determined. There is an environmental study going on right now, and we have been involved. It's been a pretty cool project. So those are the 4 areas that the state decided that we need some immediate interest in, and that's the bulk of our presentation. I hope you come out of this, seeing what kind of things you might be doing. So yeah, open up the questions. Go ahead.
So, do you know how you get involved in becoming the person who shoots that cannon?
Oh, I wish I did. I don't know that. I know that, but I do know that they're really trying to phase away from that because it's a very dangerous way to do this, right? And so, over the years, they've been backing away, doing less and less of this. I mean, historically, they did this on Mount Timpanogos, and I heard of shells landing in Orem. You know, we don't want that. That's not a good thing. About a decade ago, Fair Careers, we were involved in a project that actually installed what's called a GasX system up Little Cottonwood Canyon for parts of it, which uses a gas explosion instead of using shells. Boy, that'd be fun to shoot it off, though. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And honestly, it's a big problem that they have up there, and it creates a lot of traffic congestion. The other thing that we're always worried about in Little Cottonwood Canyon is that we don't want cars sitting in traffic in these slide areas. That's really risky. You know, you imagine you're sitting in a car waiting to get to the ski resort, all of a sudden an avalanche happens. We don't want that. And so a lot of the planning and studying that we do up here is geared towards making sure that when you're in those avalanche areas, you're moving. You're not sitting there waiting to get hit by an avalanche. So, okay. Question. So to follow up, how many of you are going to be involved in the transportation industry now? Curious. Everybody, right? Everybody. And another shameless plug for Dr. Schultz. The fun thing about our job is that we get to get involved in these projects from the very early conception and see them all the way to the end. And that's really fun. I've had involvement in a lot of projects that really improved our communities. Did a lot of planning for the UVU Express that you guys would probably ride. And it's been just a wonderful career. I really enjoy doing it and love what we do. And so hopefully some of you can interact with us. Yeah?
So, other question. We were talking about this the other day in a transportation class. On 700, right, where they took out, you can't turn left on a bunch of the streets there. What considerations did you guys make to say, hey, yeah, let's, limit a lot of the left turn lanes there? Because now you've just diverted traffic to places where a lot of pedestrians cross.
You diverted it elsewhere. It was challenging, I'll tell you. I worked on the planning study for that project for years and years and years. And it was really difficult to figure out where we were going to put left turns and where we weren't. The challenge with center running BRT is that you can't have a left turn unless they have a protected phase in the signal to get them to go. Because you don't want a driver looking over his shoulder trying to see if a bus is going to come up behind and hit him, right? So anywhere we provide left turns, you see the same on Center Street, right? Or on University Avenue, sorry. You'll see the same thing there where a lot of the left turns were removed, consolidated in certain locations. We went through a very rigorous process looking at where the traffic volumes were, where people were making lefts. We tried to eliminate a lot of the ones which were low volume so that we didn't have to provide a traffic signal for something that was a really low volume left. And unfortunately, the results of that is a lot of it gets pushed into one, concentrated. It's probably the right way to put it. You're dead right. But I think that whole area south of campus, there's pedestrians everywhere. It's just the reality of what's going on down there. There's a lot of pedestrians in that area. It was obviously a very big concern of ours when we were doing that kind of stuff. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else? Are we early? A little bit maybe? We hope we were going to end early to let you guys go out and lunch. So, and with that, we'll turn the time back over to you guys.
We'll end a little bit early, just as a reminder. There was an email sent out this morning that has all the announcements and links that you'll need for anything, service, ASE nominations, activity points. There's lots of opportunities. So that was sent out this morning. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, they have a great
turn it off. Like, Sammy turned it on. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Power button.
The power button?
Yeah, just to
You
click
stopped
power.
recording, right?
Yeah, I want to stop recording first.